Eco? Oh my! Hello there! Mwah! There's your people, look at them. Oh, you're getting trained real good. All right, well, anyway, hi. This is Robert Earl, along with Eco, the Eco Watchdog, out here at the Eco Ranch Sustainable Living Educational Center in far West Texas. Today I'm going to show you how I make flooring for a room out of pallet wood. It's how I make it. It isn't the how-to, the definitive how-to. It's how I make it. You may have a different way. Somebody else may have a different way. Those of you that may want to comment with, why don't you do this? I would have done that. You should have done this. How come this? If you want to comment with that, fine. Along with that comment, put a link to the video showing me how you did it, and I will post that comment. But if it's just conversation, we got a lot of conversation in Washington. We don't need conversation here. Show me how you did it better, or watch and learn. Anyway, so I'm going to take pallet wood and I'm going to make it into flooring. A lot of people try it, a lot of people do it, a lot of people want to do it, a lot of you DIY people, but you can't do it because you don't have a joiner to get your edges perfectly straight so they all line up instead of doing this, and you don't have a planer to get your thickness right. I'm going to do it without that because, like a lot of you guys, I can't afford it. I've spent a ton of money trying to get this place up and running so that we can live in it, and so the campground is functional, and I just didn't have money left over for a $400 planer or a $500 joiner. And all right, don't tell me there's tools out there. I know there's stuff out there you can buy cheap from Harbor Freight, and with tools, you get what you pay for. Like I've always said, my Uncle Homer told me about 50 years ago, I'll bet you it was closer to 60 years ago, my Uncle Homer told me, when you're buying tools, just look at the price and buy the most expensive you can afford. You'll never be disappointed. I do that. So let's get started on what we're doing here. Now, first of all, eye protection, very important. I don't want to teach people to not use eye protection. Ear protection is optional in my opinion. A lot of people will want to use it. Certainly this old house will use it, and I had no problem with it. I just, right now, the ear protection is somewhere where I'm not sure where it is, and I'm not going to go get it. So I've got pallet wood, and the pallet wood that I have, let me show you. It varies in thickness. This is one of the thinner boards, and this is one of the thicker boards. You can see that if I put these two on as flooring, we got what my father-in-law would call a toe knocker right there. It's going to knock your toes and maybe trip you. Now, I'm more cognizant of that now as Debbie and I are getting older. She trips a lot, and I've been known to trip, so we want to be careful of that. And we darn sure don't want a camper tripping because they probably have a lawyer that's a relative with the name of like Saul Goldstein. We don't want to deal with Saul. So we want that flooring nice and flat. We also want it to look good. So I take these, and we'll just use this piece as an example. It's a real good board. It's got 3 sets of nailings in it where it was nailed to the pallet. We want to get rid of those ends, but we also want to get the best piece of wood. So the first thing we want to do is our width. And you can pick whatever width you want. For the wood I have here, my width at 2 3/4 is about right. So we need to be able to take some off. And looky there. This one won't work. This board will not work. There's no way that I can get 2 3/4. So it's already thinner. That's firewood. So we're going to go to another board. Now here's one that's pretty crappy looking. See, it's got a bit of a warp to it. Pretty, doesn't look real good right now. Neither did this one. So we're going to do the same thing. And what we do is we kind of look at which end is the worst end. In this case, this one is, and we're going to cut it because it's way longer than what we need. And again, same as with the thickness, my boards are 32 inches because 32 is as long as I could possibly get it and use the most of the boards. So we're going to go with 32 inches. You might want 24, you might be able to go longer, depends on the pallets you get. We're going to cut this off right here. By the way, this is my first experience with one of these, what do they call these? Diablo blades. It is a great saw blade. If you are going to do any woodworking or any construction work other than, build a toy box for your kids, I strongly suggest Diablo blades. And no, they aren't paying me. Nobody pays me to do any endorsements. Actually, that's kind of wrong. I did an endorsement on the laser levels, and I'm going to do an endorsement on the forklift batteries that I use here for our system, because the batteries have been good, but all batteries are good. It's customer service you're after, and it's fantastic customer service. Comes from Extra Power batteries in Quebec. I'm not sure that they're Montreal. I thought they were Quebec City. But anyway, Extra Power with an X. You can look them up. And the other one that I have received a free product or a substantial discount on is from Coleman Air. 2 words, Coleman Air in Coleman, Texas. They make some of the best reasonably priced electronics gear for your off-grid system. All right, now back to this board. Take a look at that. It's still a little warped, but when I get to my my planing and show you how I'm planing these, we'll take most of that out and the rest we'll nail down. If I don't like that board, then I'll use it for one of the corner or the end pieces. We'll get into that hopefully in another video. So that's how you cut them. Again, we'll take one more, and again, you see that board's got a little wobble in it, so if we're going to cut anything, we want to cut that end as the big end that we cut. So we come down here, take off the least amount we can, cutting off those nails, those 2 nails in this case. Turn it around, get my 32-inch mark. Not a lot of help there on the wobble, on the warp, but any help is good. Now, if I find this one is too warped, I won't use it where I need a full 32-inch board. I'll use it where I need one down here about 24. And that way I'll cut that little bit of a bow out. But that bow is not too bad. So that's how we start this. Now, we'll move on. I'm going to finish these all these boards I've got. I got about 60 here. And then we'll move on to my planing and joining. Hey, I'm on my last board right now, and there were a couple of things about the template or the guide board I wanted to tell you. Let's get this one started first. Sometimes it's hard to pick that end that's the right end. The end that's got the least amount of damage, the least amount of warp or whatever. So, the template board in my case is 32 inches. I know I brought you real close to the cut here. So you want to be sure you use the same board all along at whatever, 32 inches in my case, to cut every single board. Because if you use a different one, you could be a 1/16 or an 1/8 of an inch off, depending on how bad you are. If you're bad like me, you'd be an 1/8 of an inch or 3/8 of an inch off. So you want to use the same board. That way, if you're like a 1/16 or a 32nd or even a 64th off, every single one is that distance off, and it's not that big of a deal to make that correction one time rather than 150 times. I think I have about 120 to do here. The other thing I wanted to say is you're using this as a template, all right, there. Now I've got it down. Some people would be inclined to cut right there. But if you do, you're going to take a tiny bit of your guide board off every time. So you back your guide board up a little bit so it's not touching, and make your cut. Those are important, and it's very important for people that are not carpenters. So those of you that are carpenters or woodworkers, if you haven't already, just turn this off because you're much better than me, and you don't need to see how I'm doing it, unless you want to pick up a couple of those good old, this old house tricks like that one. Well, folks, in case you haven't figured it out already, this is a labor of love. It's not something that's time-saving. It's not something necessarily that's money-saving unless you just don't have the money. We are saving resources. This is excellent wood. Most of it is oak. Some of it's pine. And if I can use it, it didn't end up in the landfill or didn't get burned initially. Some of it will get burned. What I can't use is firewood for the fire that I'm going to have no matter what anyway. So I think for me it's okay. It just is, it's a labor of love. So what you have to do now, we're ready, it looks like, for jointing, right? Wrong. Remember I said there were 3 sets of nails in every board? We took 2 off when we cut the ends off, but now we've got the middle one. So the middle one, what I have is a hammer, of course, a punch. Can't find my good punch, so I've got this one. And in my case, I've got a pair of old dull wire cutters. They do make a tool more specialized for this. You take the punch, put it on the... Now we've cut, I forgot to say, we cut these nails off as we took the pallets apart. We actually took the Sawzall, the construction Sawzall, deconstruction Sawzall, and cut the nails. So we've got the half nails. That's why I had to cut them out. So you got the heads on this side. You turn that side over. Put this on the bottom. Tap, tap, tap. And they don't always work. Of everything you're going to do, you do try to do make flooring. This is the one that's the least fun and can be the most time-consuming, but it has to be done because otherwise, that Diablo saw that I said I liked so well, that cost me $40, I think, and I don't want to pay another $40. Use the punch. Now I'm going to use these, and like I said, they make a specialized tool also for this. I just take, bite the nail, and try it. Of course, 9,000 of these will come out just fine. The one I do the video on doesn't. But again, that's part of the job. So you just denail. Now these boards have already been sanded, so I'm going to just start stacking these over here. 60 to do. Then we'll finally get to jointing. Okay, I did the tedious job of the denailing. Wasn't really that bad. It's the worst job, but I mean, there's worse things you can do around here. So now what we're ready to do is to square the boards up, because some of these boards are warped, or like, see this one's got the bark edge on it. It's got a slight warp to it and a slight warp on both sides. So what you want to do is you want it square so that when you line the two boards up, they butt. I'm not going to tongue and groove or even try to shiplap. These, I just don't want to. So what I've done is, these are 32 inches. I've got a board that's about 36 inches. It's an absolutely straight 2x4. And what I've done on it is I've taken a line from the straight edge here and come in a couple of inches, made a good solid line. Now what I do is take, oh, and I've also made a line on the end, 32 inches. So what I do is I take and put the corner right here on the line and screw it in. Screw it in if the bit will stay. Let's see here. There we go. Screw it into the 2x4. And line up this other end, and that's very critical. You're not going to get it right if you don't line up both corners. Line up the corners. Now, this wood's very dry, and it'll want to split, so you don't want to put your screw holes too close to the ends. Now there we go. Now I come over to the table saw and I set the table saw as soon as I find the safety glasses so somebody doesn't write me. It's funny, I can give you 400 pieces of information, 500 pieces of information in a video. Forget to put those glasses on, and what do you think? 4 or 5 people are going to complain about me not wearing the glasses. Not going to say thank you for all the wonderful information, just, hey, you weren't wearing glasses. Makes me wonder what people think about anymore. So we just take this, and you want to cut it the least amount you can, which will be right here. And I'm just going to take that part off. Wasn't any real good way of setting the camera. Now we're going to go to 2 3/4, and I don't like the way that looks. So let's see where we are on the 2 3/4. All right, so we're a little over 3. We're almost at, well, 3 3/16. I'm going to make a second cut on this. Take this in a bit. I think that'll be good. Let's try that. There's probably going to be a guy that says, oh, you've got the guards taken off. That's dangerous. He's not going to see all the other information, just the dangerous guards are off. Well, the guards are off because it won't cut with the guards on. It's that simple. Now we're going to take this board off. And what I would do is put another board on and cut all of them using this guide, or using this as a guide. Then I'd come and do this next step, but I want to get both steps out of the way for you right now. The next step is to cut the other side. So this side is now perfectly straight. So what we're going to do is we're going to turn it around like that. We're going to take and set the saw at 2 3/4. There's 2 3/4. This is why you want to have them all pre-cut, though, because every time I set it, I might be a 64th off. We want them all to be the same thickness. In this case, I'm just doing it to show you. I'm going to turn this on, and let's see, where is my pusher? In case I need my pusher. And there you have it. Both ends, both edges rather, perfectly straight. Now this is ready to go on to the next step, which is going to be making it a uniform thickness. We'll get into that next. Well, folks, I'm still working on this, but I forgot something at the very beginning, and I wanted to make sure that I said it. Talking about safety equipment, most important one, when you have sawdust flying everywhere, is to protect your lungs from sawdust, particularly in this age of COVID. You don't need your lungs damaged or your immune system compromised when you got something like that out there. And I don't need to wake up like I did this morning coughing my fanny off because I forgot to wear the mask. Always, when you're doing anything where sawdust is flying, respirator or at least a mask. And I'm back. I'm not sure about the light here because it's kind of bright behind me, and looking in the monitor it looks like it's in shadow, but got to move forward with what I've got. So what I've done now is I've got all the boards cut so that I have square and straight edges. Now what I have to do is get my thickness uniform. So what I have to do here is first of all put on my safety gear. Very important now because I had to take the guards off the blade again because the guards are lower than what this is. So Now what I do is I simply take and look at which side is the worst side, and I want to cut that side off. You can see the sawdust flying. That's why this was so important. I'm really angry at myself for forgetting it yet last night. So what I'm left with then is a piece of firewood and a piece that's not cut straight. This side is thinner than this side, so I have to see what's wrong with my adjustment. And I don't think that anything's wrong with the adjustment. I think that the problem is that this board was bowed. And that's the best cut we're going to get off of it. So this is going to be a bad board that I'll use. I'll cut off this part here, and I'll use this for an end piece. Anyway, I just have all these left to do, and then it's on to the next step, which is sanding and then installation. Hey guys, I'm on my last board as far as sanding goes, and I wanted to show you something, tell you a couple things. First of all, I had 63 boards, I think. I've got 8 that aren't complete boards. So somewhere, let's say I got somewhere around 70 boards. If you try to do this, you are going to miss a nail when you're taking those nails out. Can't help it, you're going to miss a nail. I missed 3. But the saw finds them. So when you're cutting them down to length, as I did just a few moments ago, when you're cutting them down to width, you don't want your Diablo blade on there. Those Diablo blades are very expensive. You get one nail and it pretty much does it in. And when you hit the nail, what happens is you dull the blade, or whatever it actually does to the blade, and it makes the blade start doing this. You see how I've got these burn marks because it's not sharp. The heat heats up and scorches the wood right here. Now I'm going to sand that out, but it makes it, probably a third more difficult to sand it out. So I did want to mention the blade, and also here I am sanding. Now I've got some beautiful wood here. This is the last one, and it's kind of an average board, but I have come up with some of the most beautiful clear oak. Now yes, there's nail holes, but look at that. That's clear oak. Gorgeous wood on this side. That side's untouched. That's the way it was on the pallet. So you never know, when you're looking at pallet wood, you never actually know what it looks like until you hit it with the sander or the planer. In this case, I got some pretty good wood and some pretty crappy wood. So for sanding, all I'm doing, I'm clamping it down to the table because it wants to run all over. And yes, I've been wearing the mask and the earplugs. For this right now, for these few seconds, I won't. Sander's got 60 grit paper on it. This is a random orbital sander. First time I've had one, and I really love it. Just take it. And there we go. The scorch marks are gone. This board is ready. The crack adds character, and character is something I wanted to mention just because we're doing some construction work, and a lot of it is also remodeling that you would be doing yourself. Because not everybody's going to be putting a floor on your guest room, but when you're doing these things, remember. Are you doing something that's trendy at the moment? In other words, wood with character. Character. That's all the rage right now. So you walk into a McMansion that somebody spent $3 million on, it'll have that wood with character. I happen to like it, but I liked it 50 years ago too. But here's another thing. When you walk into homes nowadays, you have what they now call open concept. Well, you're walking into this great big room. It's a living room, it's a dining room, it's a kitchen, it's a laundry room. I don't know about you, but I don't like people walking in and seeing my kitchen because we don't always wash the dishes. The kitchen's there, I don't know, it's the fad right now. And when we're talking about the kitchen, the fad right now is that 5 or 6 burner stove. Never mind the 4 burner stoves we've had for what, 100 years? 6 burner stove, and you've got to have that great big gigantic ugly hood over it. That's the fad nowadays. Subway tile, all the fad. What I'm getting at when I'm saying that is, you know, if you want to keep up with the Joneses, the Smiths, or whatever, go ahead, but remember, you're going to live with it for a long time, and if it falls out of favor, if the Joneses decide to do away with their subway tile, or they say, wait a minute, I don't like everybody walking in and seeing my dirty kitchens or my dishcloth sitting out, so I'm going to wall off my kitchen again. Now you're faced with doing it. So do what pleases you. Not pleases you because this guy or this guy on TV told you to do it. Do what pleases you. And that's what I'm doing here. I'm doing what pleases me. Now just getting back to it real quick. This is a board I just finished. 60 grit's what I said I'm using. That's as far as I'm going. If it were going in our bedroom, which this is what I'm practicing on to see if I want to put it in our bedroom, I would probably carry this to 100 grit. But I'm covering it with polyurethane anyway, and it doesn't really matter how fine I take it for sanding. Even if it's going in our bedroom, it doesn't really matter. 60 grit would probably work fine. Again, that's one of those things that's up to you. Now the next steps that I have, now that these boards are completely ready, is I have to pre-drill the holes and countersink the holes. Pallet wood is typically dry anyway. We're in a very dry climate. We're having high humidity right now, and it's running around 25%. That's high humidity. So if this wood's down around 6 or 7% humidity, and I go trying to drill a hole into it, the wood's not going to be soft like, you know, some of the wood you buy in the at Home Depot, and it's not going to give to countersink on its own. It's going to try to split. So I want to, for here, countersink. And I'm going to show you something because it's very interesting what I learned in this next step. Now for my last step before I go and install these, I have to pre-drill the holes and also countersink them. Now, I saw a video, I do like I recommend to all you people. Before you build something, go and look at all the videos you can. Take the things that best suit what you do and what your project is, and use those. So I watched some videos too, because even though I've used pallet wood a lot around here, I just wanted to see what people were doing. So this one fellow he did a beautiful, beautiful floor. I mean, just gorgeous, and there's no way I could compete with his skill level. He had a workshop that a lot of you would say, oh my goodness, that's a workshop to die for. He had a jointer and a planer and all the tools. Well, I don't have that here, and that's why we've been doing with what we have. But one thing he did was he made a jig, because he wanted all the screw holes to be uniform, and he made a jig. And on that, and with that jig, he would slide the jig down, drill his holes, slide his jig down, and drill the holes. Well, that's fine, and that was one idea, but to me it seemed like a little bit too much work. I've got my cord tangled. So, what I've done, you can see, is I've stacked up 8 boards, which is just about the depth that my drill will go. I'm going to pre-drill my holes just like he pre-drilled them, but I'm going to go through 7 boards at once, and the last board that it goes through, or it starts to go through, will be the template for my next one. So here we go. Now I'm doing 5 screws to a board. I've already marked this hole. And then these 2 down here. Now, I don't have one of those drill bits that's got a countersink built into it. I'd love to have one, and eventually I will, but that won't do you any good with this project here, because you have to countersink each individual hole, and we just drilled through 7. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. That should just about finish this video up. And so while I go and do the last step, the drilling and the countersinking, I'll let you folks go, and part 2, or video number 2, will be installing the floor. Won't be near as long as this, but those of you that maybe are new to the channel say, oh, well, he talks too much. Yeah, this is a sustainable living educational center. It's going to teach you how to live sustainably in these times, the times that are coming, the times that we're going to get through politics, man-made climate disruption, disease, pick your evil. And so that's why they're long, and that's why I impart a lot of knowledge in here, a lot of information. Whether it's knowledge or not, it's up to you. But I put the information in here so that you have it to look at, take a choice from, or not. If you don't like it, then there's plenty of other people that talk less, and since I don't monetize the channel, I do this all for free, pretty much out of the goodness of my heart to help you people. Feel free to go elsewhere if you don't like how long these videos are. But if you do, stay tuned. Part 2 will install the floor, and I'll get into all that at that time. Right now, I'm going to finish this up, and until next time, it's Robert Earl out here at the Eco Ranch Sustainable Living Educational Center in Far West Texas saying, see you later.